We think about film schools as kind of being structured in their curriculum in two ways. There are those which subject you to the masters for 2 years before they dare let you hold a camera. And then there's those that say, no, go make a terrible freshman movie while you're simultaneously studying the masters and compare and contrast your terribleness to their wonderfulness. I think that's true in virtual production as well.
Hello, you're watching and listening to the voice of virtual production, an exclusive series by Synapse and Little Black Book. Across the episodes of this video interview series, we'll hear from industry-leading experts about how the world of production's transforming and discover how to get the most out of cutting-edge virtual production tech.
My name is April Summers and I'm North America Features Lead at Little Black Book, and I'm thrilled to be joined by a perfect panel of guests to discuss the evolving role of a virtual production supervisor. Habib Zargarpour is a visiting professor and co-head of virtual production at the University of Southern California and a BAFTA winner. Habib invented the virtual production system used by Jon Favreau on The Jungle Book and by Spielberg on Ready Player One. His film credits include Blade Runner 2049 and Star Wars, and he's also art directed a number of hit video games. Habib, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
David Long is director of the RIT Magic Center, that's Media Arts, Games, Interaction and Creativity, and Magic Spells Studios. It's a university-wide research and development laboratory and a commercial production studio that assists in efforts to bring digital media creations up to marketplace standards. David, great to have you with us.
Thank you. Great to be here.
And a big hello to our final guest, Tim McLaughlin, a Dean of the College of Performance, Visualization and Fine Arts at Texas A&M University. Tim has been instrumental in the development of the university's Virtual Production Institute, set to open in the fall. His professional background includes serving as a creature supervisor at Industrial Light and Magic and Lucasfilm Animation. Tim, thanks for joining us today.
Very happy to be here, April. Thank you.
Thanks. Let's get going. As a starting point, I want to talk about how strong an understanding you think the industry currently has around the potential of virtual production. Do you think things need to improve?
Sure. I think virtual production means something different to each production. And so I think as producers, directors, the creative team are looking at ways to solve problems, I think virtual production enters into it as a set of technologies. So I think that understanding is there. What is emerging is how creators and storytellers are thinking of new ways to tell stories based upon the access to this collection of technologies, maybe a bit beyond what we've currently thought of as virtual production.
We have a virtual production course that's been going now for 2 years. What I find amazing is we can talk to people about what it is, or other students or faculty, and then when we invite them to come visit a shoot, it's always the case where a light bulb goes off. That they may have seen tons of videos or seen things about it, but once they're on set and they see it in action, that's when the light bulb goes off, and they're like, "Oh, I get it now. I see." And then they got really excited about wanting to learn it and use it. So that's, I think, it just kind of continue rippling through the industry with people that haven't experienced it or see it as something on the side, and I fully believe that it's going to be pretty standard.
Yeah, I would say as a production technology, it's fairly matured. I think we've gone past that initial adopter phase, and now we have it more widespread. We've been teaching since 2021 on virtual production, and similarly, as folks who are production savvy come in and tour our facilities, I think it demystifies it. So if you haven't done it yet and you come and actually see what is required technologically, it reminds people, or it helps people kind of make connection to tactics from long ago, right? Virtual production is inspired so many years ago by rear screen projection and the great visual effects tactics of then. So when people start putting two and two together and see live reactivity connected to that, they immediately go to some creative problem solving, and it's very cool to see. So I don't think it's a hard thing for savvy folks to get their heads around, and it's great to see what they come up with when they first see the space.
And can you tell us a bit more about the virtual production offerings each of your institutions currently provides, what the goals are of these programs, and how you're working to achieve these goals?
Yeah, I can start first. We really consider our virtual production offerings kind of a technology skunkworks. So we're actually in the midst of taking what are some elective courses built around virtual production and mainlining those into the curriculum that all of our film students will eventually go through. I think it's reached that point. Their savvy it needs to be universal. There aren't practitioners in film production that are going to be able to escape it when they graduate from the film school properly. With respect to what our real DNA is, though, we're a skunk work. So we've got a lot of engineering students and technology development where we're tackling real world problems and trying to coordinate with industrial partners who are attempting to decipher one little challenge or another, and have a lot of fun being able to rip stuff out, put new stuff in. We're a little bit more of a nimble, small installation, so that we can be a little more flexible in that way.
Interestingly, USC's had a motion capture stage in the early 2000s that was built by Robert Zemeckis. He taught the first class, and that's been, in effect, early virtual production before all the real-time game engines and that technology came up. But in about 3 years ago, we started a USC course. I was at Unity at the time. There was a virtual production program with Unity teaching, how to do previs or early block-in of a short film, and then another course about how to deploy it on a mocap stage using motion capture. And then USC was able to acquire an LED wall, an LED volume that's on stage D in the Robert Zemeckis building. And then we switched the program. At that point, I joined USC, and we switched the program to Unreal so that everything can go, students can learn the engine in the intro class, then apply it in a motion capture class, and then the third class would be applying it on an LED volume. And so that way they have stages of learning about using the technology. Because when you are on the wall, the technology is pretty complex. The addition of everything together, camera tracking and lighting and all of the different things that go together. And that way the students can really bring all their knowledge and apply it. But we also open it up to a lot of the other divisions. So we have interactive students, we have animation students. We're openly collaborating with them on these projects too in terms of content creation. So I think that's a great model to be able to have everybody join together on stage.
It's similar at Texas A&M University. We approach virtual production as a minor, so it's open to all students across the university. And we think about that as being that the minor is a vehicle for bringing these different ideas together. Now, certainly there's some level of technical proficiency required, and the core of the minor is that you enter into an understanding of what virtual production is, you get time on the stage, and then you finish with a capstone course. So the majority of the students in the minor are coming from our visualization undergraduate degree. And those students are students who are already thinking about how to combine technology with design, problem solving, creative thinking, visual storytelling. So students coming through and completing the minor should be ready then to take part in the emerging industry. To help them prepare, we're putting together facilities. We have 3 facilities underway right now. 2 are what we consider prototype virtual production stages. So they're smaller scale. They're right there next to the students in the classroom buildings. The other 2 are larger production scale stages, and they're nearby the campuses. So we can bring in outside parties to work with the students or to do independent projects that the students can work on.
Wow. They all sound like amazing learning environments. What would you say are the most common and effective ways that you're seeing people learn about virtual production, though?
Yeah, for us, it's all about hands-on. We have a motto at Magic at RIT. We learn by making things. I have an engineering background, so I think we actually learn more by breaking things. And we're challenging our students to master some of the unit operations of the workflow, not too different from what we've heard from the others. They are needing to gain competency in the various capture technologies, the real-time game engines, the media servers. We have a heritage at RIT also in the imaging sciences. So there's a lot of image processing. There's the interaction of light generated from a wall with the camera sensors and how that has to be processed to create a believable and well-matched aesthetic. So we're intending to put those together, the creative students, the artistic students, the storytellers, supported by engineering students, and challenging them, pointing out flaws that can be attacked with either a different workflow style or with perhaps an engineering solution or an image processing solution, to prepare them to be problem solvers when they're standing on a real volume and everyone's looking at the confidence monitor and something is just not quite right. So that is really the spirit of our tactic, to bring the technologists, bring the filmmakers, the creatives together, and to do so in service of their collective learning, so they can go out practically.
I think the interesting thing we emphasize at USC is the storytelling aspect, to make sure everything's on track with keeping the focus on making the story work, and then seeing all these technologies as tools to enable that, and it also helps the students to know the capabilities, to know what would be feasible when they're writing the stories, in terms of like how much physical set production you're going to need in front of the LED wall. That's always helps marry the two together, and it's kind of a back and forth with as they experience things hands-on, then they are able to improve on their story or understand it. And this is something Scott Krumpf and I work together. We're both co-heads of the virtual production program. And Scott was producer of the original Jumanji back in the 90s, which I know Tim also worked on. And I was doing the effects of sucking the kids and the animals into the boards, into the game board. So between Scott and I, we kind of worked with the students on them knowing what the limitations are, and then understanding what the benefits are and how that can leverage them to be able to tell bigger stories.
And Tim?
Yeah, I love the student learning outcomes aspects of what we're doing and what everybody is doing. There's two key outcomes that we're really hoping to get out of virtual production. And it really stems from the fact that most of our students are experiencing things on this small screen, on their way to class, and then they sit down at a bigger screen on a box, and they're creating there. And so when we get into virtual production, there's two things that happen that are different than either of those experiences. One is teaching them how to combine the physical, the augmented, and the virtual into one space that is an experiential space for whoever is the audience or the participant in storytelling. And the other is how to collaborate face-to-face in real time with a set of other key creators, where you are looking at a problem in real time with your team, not just sitting in a daily session after the fact, but in real time, and thinking about, how do you want to capture something? How do you want to tell this story? How do you want to move this physical object next to that actor and combine it with what's going on the screen? And so those two things, those two ways of thinking and modes of operating, are really what we want to get into the students and have them get out of the education.
Mm-hmm. Kind of bring them into the real world. So this discussion of like real world experience and hands-on education, how important would you say real world projects and working on these are compared to something that's learned remotely over the internet when it comes to virtual production?
Yeah, there's nothing that beats it. So, delivering distance education is just a thing that we do. We need to reach students who are remote. We need to because of different things going on in the world. We need to because we can expand our delivery. But having students face to face with one another, but particularly face to face and working with people who are in the industry who know how to set the bar at a particular place and give the students the stepping stones to get there. That is a critical aspect of what we need to do with virtual production.
Yeah, I think it's totally true about the difference between hands-on when it comes to this type of work, particularly about dealing with things that fail. That's a big part of the technical aspect of it. Something not working, you have to kick a lot of tires physically, and then it is a visceral experience seeing what's on set in terms of lighting. That's a really interesting for me is the traditional lighting on set. It's been happening for 100 years, and now you have this additional element, and then the artist learning how to light based on what's there. So if you need the wall brighter, now you need your lights to come brighter. All the exposing adjustments and things like that. I'm sure David's got a lot of color experience with that stuff.
Yeah, no doubt. It's funny because I think even it was Tim who mentioned that one of the main workflows of virtual production is pre-visualization, which that's an example of something that can be done remote. I would still call it hands-on because you are still manipulating digitally. You're still sharing and expressing, and whether it's pre-vising story or tech vising, how you're going to shoot a shot practically, those things can happen remotely. They can happen virtually. Learning can happen that way. Students can participate and contribute because the industry has embraced that modality for its workflows there. But at the end of the day, this is encompassing also on-set virtual production. And the point is that there is a real world in front of a virtual world, and the two are reactive to one another. Just as Habib said, it's balancing the color and balancing the lighting and exposure. This is no different from learning the art of lighting a chroma key scene, where if the back plate is lit in a certain way, you have to match that. You have a little better chance here because you can visualize it directly. If you're on set and you're in a volume, you can see that. And if you don't like the lighting of the background plate, if you're in engine, you can actually change it. So it can be a little more effective. It could be quicker. And it's also more enabling creatively because you can decipher a meld that's going to work a little bit better live. You can't do those things consuming a recorded lecture or tutorial sessions, right? You can get the basics, you can get the technical elements down, you can learn the interactivity of your software tools, but this is a collaborative medium with real human beings in real spaces at the end of the day.
And given this hybrid world that we're living in what ways are partnerships between higher education and industry mutually beneficial, would you say?
Yeah, for us, I think it's recognizing there's a barrier to participation from industrial participants, from those who are not skilled yet, but who wish to be, because the stages are tightly controlled during production, and you can follow an apprenticeship model. You can get the ropes while shadowing someone, but there's a lot of stress, and there could be inattention to the student or the more novice person who's trying to take all this in. I think that what our value is, first of all, of course, we're all representing preparation of the next generation of talent in a less stressful venue. Now, the students would disagree. They would say that it's very stressful in college, but it's not the same stress as needing to perform and deliver on a working set. The attention we give the students is for their education. It's for their learning. We stop if something's not going right, and we talk about what needs to be learned therein. So we're helpful, I think, in regard to preparing that next generation that's invested in this model. But I think we can extend our lessons out to industry directly, and we can contribute and participate our services, our expertise in specialized programming, rather than the industry relying on an apprenticeship model only to raise that talent from the current working professionals. I think you're going to see more and more of that as we go forward too. I know RIT has participated in putting ourselves out there to provide education to the current workforce, not just to the college students who are enrolled.
Yeah, there's an interesting, there's obviously partnerships with various companies in terms of technology, but also them wanting feedback from the students, which is really great. We're able to get Sony involved in camera design. They want to hear from the students. Other benefits are, of course, when as companies see talented students, then they're likely to want to be able to support them. There's also a group called the ETC that's led by Ken Williams and Eric Weaver. They provide they take recent graduates and they're able to do real industry partnerships for them to deploy their leading edge technologies. So 2 years ago, there was a film called Fathead that was done using the Amazon LED wall. And then last year, a film called Europa was done on the Sony wall on Stage 7. And these kind of partnerships are great for not only the recent grad, but they also get a lot of students involved in those productions so they can learn and see, and then I think it helps the industry to see who are those shining stars coming up, that they can benefit from as well, when they're ready.
We see that this relationship between industry and the university, it has this overlapping area, but two distinct interests as well. And it's the overlapping area that, particularly at Texas A&M as a land grant university, we're strongly interested in the translational aspects of our education and how those move into industry. And we have to stay tight with what industry needs are. But outside of that, over here, the university experience for students, they get to explore things that are in a way that they would never get to explore when they're in industry. They get to go further, wider, deeper in ways that are up to their own muse, which is, I think, a very important experience for them. And at the same time, industry is going to need a level of specific skill set and interest, and that's where we overlap. Our goal with this is to make sure that the students are ready for that first day set of skills, and that's why that relationship is so important. But more importantly, we want to make sure that the students are ready 3 years from now, 5 years from now, that they're able to adapt to the changes. And that's where we'll benefit the industry the most, is that we've prepared our students on how to think about the new emerging technologies or uses of technology or ideas. And that's what this other part of their education does. And so we really have to make sure that both are in place.
Yeah. And when it comes to adapting to changes, how do you expect each of your programs to grow and expand?
Yeah, I can speak to Texas A&M. So the expansion of what we want to do with virtual production is to move it across the different areas of our college. Right now, it's centered on the visualization side, but we have faculty and we have students coming into it from across the different areas. And in the college, that includes the other areas of the arts. So what does virtual production mean for the performing arts? What does a live experience mean? What does it mean to be the performer? What does it mean to be the choreographer, the designer, the technologist, the engineer? We're interested in all of those aspects. And what we can do then is transform the use of virtual production into a variety of industries. So we are working and building partnerships with people in manufacturing, people in simulation and training, people in healthcare, to understand where they are seeing problem sets that this collection of tools, this collection of technologies and ways of thinking can help solve.
Yeah, I think, it's definitely a growing popular area for students as they learn about it. And also as industry needs more people that are trained to take advantage of these tools. So, we're expanding the involvement of the different groups within USC School of Cinematic Arts. We have, as I was mentioning, the interactive groups being able to contribute, as well as the animation students. We also have virtual production thesis program that we started with Scott Kroom. So we have students doing their thesis projects as virtual production projects, and we advise them. There's actually 2 semesters. One is to prepare for the production and do the story writing and teach them how to do the breakdowns and how to prepare it for virtual production. And then the second one is when they actually do the production. And so we have several students that are coming out with projects they've been shooting last year. And then as we're also seeing the results of how these students are able to learn from their experiences. And typically these are students that have taken the virtual production course. We call it the 544 is the number. It's a graduate level course, but we can look at how we can expand our needs to match what's out there in the industry with expansion plans and be able to grow this program. But we're very excited about how things are working out, and involving a lot of other faculty to be able to join in the class. So within the class, I think the first year we had many professors of different areas covering it, just so they could be exposed to it when they go back to their classes. They would understand how it works. Editorial, sound, production design, directing, cinematography, all of these. Now it's a more compact kind of group of professors, but we have professor of cinematography, production design, and producing in terms of storytelling and budgeting, and then the virtual production side of it. But all of these kind of work together, and I think we're going to have a great future in this area at USC.
Yeah, I alluded earlier, we are in the process of mainlining virtual production into our underclass film production courses. The idea being that it is now pervasive enough in industry that these are the new production techniques. They are not an elective experience any longer. They're not an advanced experience, but they're the mainline experience. So with that porting, we're going to be able to turn the attention of our current elective virtual production classes to other emerging technology. And that's kind of our pipeline. We lean heavily on our media engineering and media technology faculty to kind of go out and explore what are emerging trends, and then aggregate that into some coursework that's intriguing for experienced students, graduate students, eventually getting confident enough with it to push it down. Virtual production is great to mainline because you break it down, there are 3 predominant departments. You've got your virtual art department. These can be sourced from 3D animators, 2D animators, 3D digital design students, new media design, game design students, all the folks who are putting together the virtual elements. And then you've got volume control, which are IT students, engineering students, imaging science students, motion picture science students, taking advantage of control of all the various technologies involved in the entire imaging pipeline. And then ultimately, you have cinematic execution. So you have your cinematography, your production design, your lighting, your art design. These departments are discovering how to deploy in these new workflows. And again, by cutting our teeth in an elective sense and learning how to mainline that to the entire student body, not only are all of our media production majors on campus benefiting, but so many of the ancillary departments where they're not cinema direct, but they're cinema adjacent. So many students come and participate in the courses in that capacity, and it allows us to get across campus quite a bit more holistically.
That sounds great. What aspects of technology in particular have you each found to be most surprising or impactful to your work, would you say?
There's so many things. I think that the technical aspects that challenge us all are continuing to push virtual production not being obviously virtual production when you watch it in its completed and published state. We have so many of our students who feel like they've got a great sense for that, and they'll watch a show, they'll come back, we'll critique it, and sure enough, they'll look up the technical history of that show, and yes, indeed, it was shot on a stage, it was shot on a volume. So that I love that as a answer to this question, because it pushes both the technologists and the creatives. It pushes both to enhance the illusion, right? And I'm sure my colleagues on the chat here today will affirm that a good visual effect is one you didn't know was a visual effect. So I think virtual production faces that as a struggle. I think there are still limitations engineering wise that keep creatives from being able to do everything they want to do. You can't focus directly on these volumes or you'll get the wonderful aliasing artifacts. If your color management isn't sound, you can't do foreground production art matched to virtual art well enough, and then it'll be a dead giveaway. And then there's just, depending on the size and scope of your volume, there's claustrophobic camera angles and cinematography. So I think we can do a lot with set extension. I think we can do a lot with allowing the camera to pan off the volumes in some regard, and those things are going to be exciting coming along. But yeah, anything having to do with making it disappear as an effect to the final audience. You want to feel like they were on a real location, not on a soundstage somewhere.
Tim?
To me, the real-time engines are the key technology that keeps catching my attention in terms of where things can go with virtual production. So I think about, the use of Unreal is pervasive across the industry, but coming into the ways we think about virtual production, you could look at what's going on at Roblox, you could look at what's going on with NVIDIA's Omniverse, and kind of span across these technologies and see how real-time and user-generated content can merge with physical production in different ways than cinematic. And so I think the key are these real-time engines that allow for easy adoption, easy manipulation of assets, and with AI coming in and the voice prompts and different ways to create. I think there's something critical emerging there, and the basis of that is the real-time engine.
Yeah, to me, the first surprise is students' reactions to what's possible, and then the second thing is how they can turn around and take advantage of that. They're able to really take advantage, harness that to tell their stories and expand the world that they're showing. And a lot of it's about them learning the tricks of the trade. To what David was talking about. How do you make it feel like a wide open space and give it as much depth as possible and still stay within the confines of those limitations. I think other technology can also supplant it. It's not necessarily be all and end all to use an LED wall. I think we're going to see more and more immersive green screen simulcam. I just worked on a project that involved a lot of that. The entire world was generated in a real-time engine. The compositing was real-time, but the stage was all green, and that opens up to any kind of camera motion and any kind of lens. But when you start combining these things, then it expands what you're able to do. But I agree with Tim about real-time engines being the way forward. I believe that ever since I went from ILM to EA in 2003, and I've been waving the real-time flag. Everything's got to be real-time. It's hard to go back once you've experienced that, and I'm really happy technology's caught up with very the amount of what's possible with real-time now compared to what we do with offline visual effects. That's been the big race, to be able to achieve photorealism with the real-time tools. And to Tim's point, there's a lot of these different outlets for that. The Omniverse is doing amazing real-time ray tracing, and I'm excited about all of it because it just means that the tool's not the hindrance, hopefully.
I'm sure you've seen a lot of excitement from students when they're first exposed to a virtual production environment. Can you tell us a bit about that, what it's like?
Yeah, I'll take that first. I think whenever we have people interested students are interested in seeing the class, and they know a little bit about it, but it's never the same as when watching their faces when they come on the set, and their eyes literally glow. You could just see their amazement and fascination with everything, and you also can tell they just can't wait to get started. It's really a really amazing thing to see.
Yeah, and it can be intimidating as well, because you're on this stage with, there's professionals involved always, and you're on the stage with this group of people, and a lot of equipment many of our students have never been exposed to, because they've been working on the box. They've been working on their workstations and computers, and it quickly, once that, and usually it takes something like, hey, come over here, get your hands on this, move this around, to get over that intimidation. And then they start to recognize, oh, this control moves that over there, and I can control this here and that. And that sense of being able to direct an environment that's a physical environment that other people are in, I think is really engaging and exciting. And it's a new experience, but also plays into the patterns in their brain that are about storytelling. It's just a new set of tools. But once they get over that intimidation factor, they love it.
In the spirit of cinema, bigger is better. And I think the observation we have when students first walk onto our stage, to be on a professionally sized stage, to see a large volume, their minds immediately go to creativity. I think it's the immersion. There's almost a theme park aspect, right? They're all taken back to when they were younger and they were little kids, and they were Universal Studios or something, where they're surrounded by all this visual stimuli, and they get super, super excited about being the authors of that visual stimuli, even if it's going to be through the lens of a single cinema camera, and a little constrained. They can't believe their luck of being able to be surrounded by it while making that movie. They can transport themselves and their crew from Western New York to anywhere in the world, fantastical or real, by working with talented 3D designers and environment designers and things like that. It's also to nerd out. It's when my engineering students would rather spend more time on the backside of the volume, figuring out how everything is connected, and just staring at. We get more cell phone pictures of the backside of our wall by the engineering students around here than you get the front side with the cool interactivity. So we're a little bit nerdier here, and that's fulfilling. It's fun.
Yeah, anyone doing that is definitely on the right course, in the right line of work. Yeah, definitely. And Tim touched on it there briefly, but in terms of other industries, how do you see virtual production technologies impacting industries beyond film and TV production?
Yeah, there's a ton of experiences that are immersive. There's also a lot of live venues, concerts, special venues. This is becoming more and more. We're going to start seeing these in people's homes. It's no longer about, do I want the 75-inch or the 65-inch? It's your wall. That's going to become more attainable cost-wise as this becomes more of a standard. I think creators are going to be able to see how they can apply this in their own area. So I think a lot of plays, theater, those kind of experiences can really expand with this, and has been. We've seen glimpses of that.
I agree with all that completely. I'm very much looking forward to live performance and some of the other adjacent industries, their applications of this technology. Some of the things that are intriguing for me are digital twins, simulation, and visualization. So taking advantage of the largeness of a virtual production volume, the physical presence of the human beings in it, to deliver not a performance, deliver not a entertainment experience, but instead to interact with data in some context. It's, gamification probably gets thrown around as a word representative of those types of application, but being able to navigate intentionally and kind of explore and investigate new human-computer interaction modalities, again, sifting through data in a way that is intriguing visually and can only be accomplished by that reactivity, that real time, and that immersion. I'm looking forward to that. We're playing with that a little bit with some of our faculty here.
Yeah, I'll just touch on the idea of using it for simulation and training, because the others have touched on some of the parts I'm also interested in. But imagine a training environment for first responders where the exercise is delivering some sort of first aid or care in the middle of a natural disaster, and so by having the volume, you can encompass the trainee in an experience where the screens are contributing to building the heart rate and the feeling of immersion that you're in it. And then you have a physical facsimile of a patient there that provides this tactile sensibility, and then perhaps some sort of augmented or headset, so that you have a virtual layer over that virtual patient of really what the different situation may be in terms of the care you need to provide. Then if we can get our walls and our technology to be wind and water resistant, then we can really amplify the situation. The goal is that those trainees emerge from that experience where they're ready. They've gone through it 100 times on a stage, and so when the real event hits, they're not surprised by all of the environmental factors and the things that they have to deliver in that situation. So I love the idea of using the stage and what it can offer for immersion, the physical part combined with the augmented part as a training environment.
Yeah, they're all great ideas.
Yeah, art galleries too. You've seen with projections that immersive art galleries. Those can also take advantage. And we haven't touched on AI, but that's another whole area that's evolving. We have a course about on using AI to tell stories, and students creating short films. They have to change tools every 2 weeks. That's how fast it moves.
I'd love to know how each of you are seeing AI influence your programs.
Yeah, for us, the journey is generative versus productivity, right? We have a lot of students intrigued to use, but also to create productivity tools. I think, though, we acknowledge we are humanists. We are in a discipline where humans are connecting with one another. There's much less intrigue amongst young filmmakers to go off and have software make their story for them. But they love the idea of attacking the mundane and attacking the repetitive with a tool so that they can get direct to creative. Early in my career, I was a researcher at Eastman Kodak Company, and we were doing all kinds of color calibration schemes for scanning, for digital intermediate, or for telecine transfer. And the goal was to get colorists to creative grade faster and not have to spend so much time with technical setup by allowing algorithms to do it on their behalf. So I don't see this as distinct from that. So for us, we're charging headlong down the path of investigating productivity tools. The generative stuff is concepting, it's inspiration, but it is not yet pervasive in full-blown publication of storytelling.
That's a very accurate way to put it. I'm a huge fan of the productivity ones because we know there's a lot of really tedious tasks that are involved with creating 3D assets. For example, UV mapping and skinning and rigging. And I know Tim's had his share of those areas. And, I think when we look at some of these tools, for example, the course we have that teaches students to just create a short, that's just kind of a visualization exercise for them to be able to tell a story and then, be able to iterate quickly and then understand the limitations, right? To David's point, it's not really prime time ready for taking full direction. And there's different developments. There's interesting ones where you can film your actors with your iPhone and then tell it to change the background to a castle and put armor on the actors, so you still have your authored camera move and their authored faces. That's an interesting, that's an augmentation thing. But, the direct use of it on a virtual production stage is tools like Blockade Labs and Kubrick. and those are AI tools that generate environments, and they have ways to control what goes in. For example, Arcade Labs, you can sketch outlines of what you want all around you, and then tell it what theme you're looking for, and then they tap into their own art form. They're not using others. They train it based on their own different styles, and then generate the environment as geometry followed by a distant matte painting, and then you can put that on your LED volume. So that's a whole interesting aspect that's going to continue developing, over the coming years. In terms of having custom assets on the LED wall, that's where our collaboration with the interactive students and the animation students comes in, because that's a partnership where they could generate content that's custom designed for that production as opposed to assets that they purchased.
Yeah, for the impact of AI on what we're doing in education here at Texas A&M, at first, at the base level, we need every student, and we expect every student to be literate. So we need to make sure that we're introducing them to the concepts, the ideas, and what's going on with AI, so that they understand it and can discuss it and then make choices. At the far other end are students who will be making their own models, right? So they're going to be constructing their own AI models to use for particular reasons, and they need to understand how they're doing it, what the best practices are, how to get the compute, what to use for it. In the middle is where the majority of students are going to be. And so what I would expect from every student who is making a choice to be able to define why they chose to use AI in a particular situation or why they didn't. And if they did, what were they trying to get out of it, and did they achieve that? So we have this impact in terms of education, which is one, base level understanding, high-end use, very particular use, guided use, and in the middle, students who are going to be able to be good decision makers and informed decision makers and move their ideas or their productivity forward faster because they've made the right choices around AI.
And for the prospective students that might be watching this episode and wanting to learn more about virtual production, what would you recommend they do as a first step?
Well, it depends upon where they're coming from. So if they are novice storytellers, don't even worry about virtual production. Pick up a camera, pick up a pencil, and work on visual storytelling. If they are beyond that and are moving to the next steps, then start looking at how they can gain access or build for their own a way to integrate something that is virtual on a screen with something that is physical from the point of view of the cinematic camera, and start working with that. So I don't care when they arrive on campus what they know about any particular piece of technology. What I care about is how they think about the things that they're going to be doing. And they can develop that way of thinking by practicing it themselves with minimal technology, actually.
I agree with Tim completely. You have to start with the basics. You have to start being able to tell a story. You have to think about how to work with collaborators in generating a story, moving into technology eventually. We all hold more technology in our pockets now that's able to enact our vision to a screen some way, somehow. We may still be bad at it, but if you only, it's funny, right? We think about film schools as kind of being structured in their curriculum in two ways. There are those which subject you to the masters for 2 years before they dare let you hold a camera, because you can't do but emulate the masters if you're going to be successful. And then there's those that say, no, go make a terrible freshman movie while you're simultaneously studying the masters, and compare and contrast your terribleness to their wonderfulness. And so I think that's true in virtual production as well. I've got great friends who teach it at Drexel in Philadelphia, and and chatting about, oh my gosh, how big should our volume be, and how much do we need to invest in an ecosystem that allows them to feel like they're in Hollywood. And my friends there say, we stick a TV up and we start with stop motion puppets, right? Because the concept is the same. It's very, very accessible if you don't feel like you need a volume, if you just need a digital screen and a game engine and some reactivity, right? And there are very cheap trackers from the AR VR world that you can tape onto your phone, and you can even get your phone to do it. So to Tim's point, right, it's go make a silly, stupid, bad movie using the technologies. If you're inspired by storytelling, go get better at that. If you're inspired by the technology development, be inspired by your mistakes to go get more on that. But play early and often and fail fast.
Yeah, I think we have students that come to the virtual production courses who've never touched any 3D software. They're just coming through it from a writing or directing point of view. And then other students are more savvy and they've used this stuff at home, and they can teach you a few things about it. But in both cases, it's still the same premise where they need to learn about the storytelling part of it, how to harness that. So I think if someone's trying to get into this area, the first thing you need is enthusiasm. And the second thing you need is patience with, how these tools keep advancing or breaking, that you need to fix. And then the recognition that it's just going to continue evolving and changing. I realized that early on in visual effects land that it's pointless to want things to stay the same. And we treat some of that as like a lab situation. Of course, they have to be trimming the lawns. But I think, whoever wants to get into this field, there's a lot to learn online first. You can do a lot of searching about other films and how they're made, a lot of behind the scenes to, tell you a lot. But then you can also just jump onto the, taking these amazing courses at these facilities and being open to learning, and not being set in your ways.
Okay, great. Well, that's all we've got time for today. Tim, Habib, and David, thank you so much for sharing your insights. That wraps up our dive into education. Thank you for watching The Voice of Virtual Production, and watch out for future episodes where we'll continue to share tips, tools, and expertise from the front line of modern filmmaking and education. Until then, it's goodbye for now.